Welcome once again to Washington and Me. I'm your host, George Blaze. Well, since 1930, the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle has served the most at-risk, most vulnerable communities in the region with advocacy and civic engagement, public policy issues all over the place. Joining me today is Maya Manus, Advocacy and Civic Engagement Coordinator for Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. Maya, it's good to see you happy and healthy.
Hi, how are you?
Doing very well. You know, all things considered, we're hanging in there. So much has been going on, and we only have half an hour here, but, you know, we'll just have a conversation about everything your organization does as well as what you've been doing. First of all, a summer like no other. What we've been going through here in the Seattle area is unprecedented. Maybe share some thoughts with me about what's been going on the last couple of months and how the Urban League has really been out there.
Yes, so there's been a lot going on, with social unrest as well as, COVID-19. There was an uptick with a public health crisis, an economic crisis, and also social justice crisis. And so really what we've done is try to at least help immediately with opening up, youth shelters, assisting with trying to provide masks to communities. We did grocery assistance programs. And then also we then started to coordinate with other Black-led organizations in the Pacific Northwest and tried to see what is that we need to make sure that Black Washingtonians have statewide as well as in King County and Seattle to make sure that they are successful post-COVID-19 and ensuring that we have police accountability, police oversight. And so what we've really done is connected with organizations that we connected with the 2020 census to see how do we make sure that we get our community out to vote right now, but then also looking into 2021, how to make sure we protect Washingtonians in Olympia statewide.
It seemed, up and down throughout everything that's been going on the last couple of months. There's kind of been, I don't know if I'd call it a struggle, but there's been a challenge in that, what ostensibly is a struggle for social justice for Black people. That's a nationwide struggle, really. And these protests kind of are an exhibition of that need for this kind of change and this progressive change in terms of the way that authority and police and government deal with Black people in various communities. Sometimes the messages get mixed. Sometimes other agendas jump in. I've heard feedback from some people, honestly, who push back on me and say, like, George, it doesn't matter. This is an uprising. This isn't just a protest. What's kind of been your sense of what's going on out here?
Well, I think that it's, I think every sort of discourse should, have its discourse. Like at this point, emotions are involved. And I think, there has been a really great conversation in thinking innovatively in terms of what it could look like to get people elected into Olympia, what it would look like to keep police accountable, what it can look like for community oversight. And so I think one thing that I think has been really what I have seen is innovation in terms of what it could look like compared to not any other state that has done it, not how any other, maybe another country has done it, but really looking at how we could be a place where Seattle has accountability in a way that's never been seen before by community, and it's for community, and there's access to mental health that's needed, access to those who are experiencing homelessness, resources. So I think one thing that I've seen with the varying aspects of discourse is just innovation on how to fix the problem.
I've had conversations with various people who, specifically in the media cover issues of homelessness before all of this other stuff happened, and the unique challenges that came about with the COVID-19 crisis in terms of the homeless situation in Seattle and how it was affecting the ability to produce services and resources for that population here. What are some of the things going on right now in that particular sector that you think need more effort, need more energy, need more resources in order to not forget about this community? I mean, there's other stuff going on.
Yes. What I think we've seen in King County is that the road to stable housing is the best way to make sure that people with those who are experiencing chronic homelessness to be able to get out of homelessness. So there have been programs in King County where shelters have opened up, assistance to hotels have expanded, where those who are experiencing homelessness, as long as they have somewhere where they can call a place to sleep each night, they were able to, find employment, be able to go to doctor's appointments or therapy appointments, whatever they need to get for their success to get out of chronic homelessness and into stable housing. And so I think what COVID-19 has shown us is that stable housing is essential and it's key, and we need to find out how we can make affordable housing more expansive, and be able to also provide direct cash assistance or direct assistance to those farthest in need to be able to have access to housing, services, mental health, medical field, all of that.
In terms of what was going on with the Chaz and CHOP zones, I think one of the major untold stories, it's easy to talk about blood and guts all over the place, but people really in the media really didn't cover kind of what you were mentioning, like these innovative ideas, cooperative economics, different systems of barter and trade, developing urban farming. There were micro experiments going on within that, which I think nobody was really talking about. I mean, could you share some highlights of some of the things you saw that are really like ideas that we could push forward?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I live very close to CHOP, so I was there pretty frequently, and every time that I was down there, it was full of community. There were people making sure that people had masks and hand sanitizer, especially near the entrances. There were places for people to get different types of food. They had different food options. There was places for you to get water. There was, urban farming. There were community meetings. And so it was really, I think, to me, a really great way to show that there's actually a community in Seattle, and we do care for one another, and we do watch out for one another.
And I mean, I think that's a vital thing that I wish more people talked about instead of just the negative of everything. Like, given the opportunity to help each other, people really do jump in and people really do try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where, there were sleeping bags given to those who were experiencing homelessness, or different tents, or, they had a place where they can at least know they can get breakfast in the morning. And so, yeah, it was, to me, a really great experience on building community together. There really wasn't any sort of violence. Even people felt comfortable leaving their phones with other people to make sure that they were charged at a charging station while they went to go with their friends. So it really was a place of community.
There's been a lot of pressure and criticism of local government in terms of the mayor's office and the chief of police as to everything that went down there. Things seem to have quieted down for a moment, but now as we're getting into these fall months, things seem to be heating up once again. And is this just an aspect of we're closer to the November elections, so the general energy around the country is ramping up, or what's actually going on the streets?
I think what has caused, COVID-19 and isolation to happen is more people are involved in what's happening locally. And I think what people are starting to realize too is what happens in your city council or your city halls, or what happens in your, county council, or even in Olympia, has way more of a daily impact on you than, the general presidential election. And so I think what we've been able to see is more people are just involved more locally and wanting to make sure that their voices are heard on a local election, because they're starting to realize the importance on their local voice.
In looking at national media coverage of what's going on in the Seattle metro area, in this area, it seems like people try to lump in the atmosphere and what's going on in Seattle and Olympia with what's going on in Portland, and it's not the same energy. It's not the same thing. Am I wrong on that?
I haven't been to Portland, so I don't know what it actually is on the ground, but I wouldn't say so. Yeah, I wouldn't say so, but I would need to know more about what's happening on the ground in Portland.
Certainly, certainly. Luckily, that's one of the things that's also been very important during this period of time is that in terms of people who are doing actual grassroots work and organizing, whether they're independent journalists or what have you, they've really taken advantage of using social media to make sure that there aren't invisible stories, to make sure that the news gets out, like actually what's going on gets out there. Have you been following a lot of the kind of the independent media as well?
Yes, and I think that's another thing, with isolation is that we kind of are stopped in, not necessarily bored, but have more time to inquire on certain things. So yes, I have been following specifically local journalists and people who have been documenting the Seattle protests in and around the area, just because I think it is very vital, not only to support, local Seattleites during COVID-19, but also to really get all of the sides of the story. And then also just being there physically, you can get a different sense being there yourself.
Well, Maya, we're entering in the next couple of weeks here, probably the most volatile electoral cycle in the last 25, maybe 40 years. Wow, a part of the effort all along, and I know you've been doing work as well, is making sure people have been registered, making sure people are engaged, making sure people get out and actually participate in this election.
Yes, so the campaign that the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle started during National Voter Registration Week is This Person Votes, which is targeting first-time voters or people who feel like they need a little bit more confidence in voting. So we've created a comprehensive voter guide for you to know all what you need to know on a ballot in Washington State, or what you could expect to see, and when you would need to, register to vote, when you should see your ballot, when you need to turn it in, the different ways you can turn it in. Basically, everything you need to know to make sure that your ballot is safe in terms of when you receive it, when you fill it out, and when you return it. And the whole goal is we want you to have your voice, like your voice and your vote matters. So we want to make sure that you have the confidence in that vote and being able to complete your ballot.
One of the things we've seen, outside, 2008 was pretty enthusiastic. 2012 was an election as well. 2016, it seemed like this all-important, this 18 to 24-year-old demographic, the so-called youth vote, simply did not participate. They were loud, they were boisterous, they were part of the campaign, but they didn't show up at the polls. What has to happen differently now to get young people to actually jump in, like to take it seriously?
I think what I've been hearing, and especially with like the millennials and the Gen Zs, is that we're way more issue-based focused than party focused. And so really connecting different issues to different, positions on the ballot, and really showing that you have a voice in specifically the local elections, I think can really drive the turnout with like the millennials and the Gen Zs, because they care more about, how are we going to fix the environment? How are we going to, have police accountability, homelessness, affordability. And so I think focusing on those issues and connecting different positions to those issues really can drive specifically the young vote.
Certainly, and I think that's invigorating to know, and I think that's the best way to kind of look at political things, not just going by groupthink, but actually what's important to you, what are the issues that impact you that you feel are important, and really throwing your support and your energy behind that, as opposed to, I don't know, it's almost like sometimes we give up a responsibility to think deeply about politics by simply being like, well, I'm just with one side or I'm with the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think with there's about 7 million new registered voters from 2016, from people who turned 18 from 2016 to 2020. And then I think what they have seen specifically is that you can be allegiant to a party, but that's not anything in terms of making sure that climate change is going to change, or there's going to be, a healthcare affordability for all. And so I think with especially the 7.7 million new voters, specifically, they're really focusing on different issues rather than different parties.
One of the movements, of course, that, you talked about environmental issues as you go from city to city across the country, particularly when we're talking about underserved communities, Black communities, urban communities where we really don't have anything. These are perfect testing grounds for progressive ideas. And I think not a lot people don't really put enough respect on the fact that if you're going to try some of these ideas, let's start from the bottom and see where it goes. Tell me a little bit about, in terms of environmental issues, whether it's urban agriculture or these other ideas, how we can start to really think and implement these things for the Black communities in the Seattle area.
Yes, and that again goes what you're saying in terms of focusing on local politics and elections, where King County has a lot to do with, wastewater management and waste management in general. And so to be able to think about different ways to how we, deal with waste, even as simple as that, or how we keep certain companies in King County accountable in terms of carbon emissions. Even though there aren't any federal protections, there can still be state and local protections for carbon emissions. And so there are ways where talking to your King County council member can have a really impactful start to enacting climate change, not only to ensure that everybody in Washington state is doing their part, but specifically companies as well.
Absolutely. Of course, the COVID-19 crisis has had such a huge impact on local economies, small businesses, entrepreneurs. And when we talk about that, the people who usually lose out first are your minorities, your Blacks, your Latinos, your Pacific Americans. These are the communities get hit first and hit hardest. Helping entrepreneurs, small business owners in the Seattle area, particularly those who are already at the bottom, get back on their feet and not lose everything, has got to be part of what the Urban League is focused on as well.
Yes, so we are currently working with different small business owners to ensure that, how can we best assist them? We are working with the Seattle Medium to, have this Pledge for 25 campaign, where you pledge $25 to support a local Black-owned business in Seattle and King County. We recently launched a grant opportunity for local Black-owned businesses who were affected specifically during COVID-19 to be able to see how we can provide a small grant to be able to help assist which way we can. So, yeah.
It seems that, we talk about what's been going on with COVID-19 and the economy as it's hit a reset button. It's really pulled the covers back on where we actually are financially and economically speaking in many communities and places. But it is always also, with this reset, has created opportunities. And I think particularly about young people, young Black people, how engaged we are in social media and these other things, and yet we don't get the training or the knowledge of being able to monetize that and to make that a business and to understand how to put money behind that instead of just wasting time. Training young people on how to use new technologies to become entrepreneurs has got to be vital right now.
Yes. So we're currently, working in our high schools to ensure that students understand different coding, maybe learning how to, make a website or an app. Specifically, we also have a program where it's like a fast track coding program where they learn AWS to be able to work at, Amazon or Google or Facebook, to be able to, tap into this digital divide that we are experiencing specifically for Black communities and other people of color.
You have these major tech companies in the area that have really transformed the face of the state and the region. Are they doing enough? Are they doing their part to really participate, to really uplift our most vulnerable communities?
I think, they're doing their part right now with, everybody is vulnerable and we're needing assistance. I think that's a loaded question in terms of are they doing enough? Because there's many ways that you can think about, and that's another thing I think we're seeing with innovation in terms of specifically like revenue or and things like that. So I think they're doing everything that they can right now, but I think they could be doing more.
And I think that's honest, and I apologize for that. I mean, it's how do you put a meter or a measure on how much people can do compared to how much they're not doing? I guess you can't really put an answer to that. I guess more so it would seem like if you put pressure on a multi-billion-dollar tech company that's in the area, has many employees who are displacing people in the community, what have you, that they would never hesitate to be like, yeah, we want to do programming to incorporate people as opposed to just displace them with our staff.
Yeah. I get what you're saying with that, and I think they are currently working with trying to so yeah, I do agree with that, and I see what you're saying with that. Yeah.
It's not easy. I mean, there's no simple answers to any of this stuff. Honestly, we're all doing our part. Everyone's doing their best. Everyone wants to see everything progress for the region. We're all trying to figure that out. It just seems that more and more as people get pushed out of the central metropolitan area into further and further away from everything that's really hot and everything that's going on, it becomes more and more difficult for them to even be a participant. It's harder to work for Google if you don't live in the area. It's I don't know. It's a double-edged sword in that sense.
Yeah, or thinking that you could do it. So I think one thing that the Urban League is really trying to strive for is to ensure that there's the educational opportunities in high school, and even looking beyond high school into middle school in terms of understanding that you could work for Google or Facebook, and you could be working for these big tech companies, as well as other opportunities in Seattle in terms of even maritime programs or construction programs, which yield a lot of benefit and for our community, but we don't normally tap into. So yes, I think in terms of having access to Seattle has decreased for our communities because of these tech companies. And so, that's again where I think, there could be a way where we could be getting a little bit more of that revenue, or, having different programs of housing affordability within Seattle could change the way of making sure we can get, Central District back, or South Seattle back.
And clearly, we have to look at the quality of the programs. I can't tell you how many times I've gone and sat with and watched some of these programs where big companies, tech companies or others will bring in a bunch of Black kids in for a day internship or a week internship. And they're like, well, this is the room where they write code. Come along, children. This is the room where the code gets put in the computer. Come along, children. It's lunchtime. And they don't actually get to participate in any way. It's like you're observing other people, but you're not actually getting anything out of it.
Yeah, and I think, that's where the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle is a little bit of innovative, is where I know we have an education program that is, teaching students how to make a web page, or how to make a app on their phone. And thinking about if you needed an app, what app would you need, and be able to kind of get that innovative, thought process, small business owner thought process going in terms of this could be you too. And so, yes, I do see that sometimes, a tour is not enough. There needs to be that hands-on learning experience that is needed.
Well, I have a couple of minutes left here, and I always ask all my guests, particularly when we're talking about these kind of issues, it's so important, particularly in the Black community, mental health, self-care, particularly during these times where people are isolated, people are downtrodden, people are out of work, but their lives have been upended, particularly children and young people who are at certain stages of their development now, who are isolated from the experiences that you and I may have had in high school, which are so vital to imprinting on who you'll be as an adult. And these kids are never going to get that because they're sitting at home this week. Let's talk about that aspect of the mental health part of this.
Sure. Yeah. So I think, being isolated has caused many to, experience anxiety as well as, having, this social unrest, everything that's happening, and especially like our high school students. And so that's why, we're really looking into how do we increase, nurses and mental health counselors in high schools, and how does that look in terms of ensuring that there's at least a nurse and a mental health counselor available for students, and seeing how, because we understand at this time, it's very confusing, and it's new for all of us, and being able to talk to someone, especially a trained professional is key.
Absolutely. The conversation continues. The work continues. Maya Manus, Advocacy and Civic Engagement Coordinator for the Urban League of Metro Seattle. Thank you so much. I'm glad you got some time with you today. I know it's busy out there for you, but keep up the good work. And as things progress, as we move down the line here, I hope we can check back in and see what else we can bring up here.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week right here on Washington and Me.